but it has to do with a very interesting campaign that the Times of India has launched called the Lost Votes. What are the lost votes? They're simply this. There are so many of us in urban India today and other parts of India who move from the cities of our birth and move from our home states to other states to work. Some people are transferred on a regular basis. Unfortunately, you're registered in one city or in one location and you now live in a different location and you're unable to vote. Those votes are the lost votes. Can we bring them back? Take a look.
On the debate tonight, Times of India's campaign to make our votes mobile. Every year, lakhs of voters are forced to give up their right to vote, either because of a transferable job, or they are away studying, or they live in a different city.
एक दो दिन आने जाने में डिपेंड टाइम वेस्ट हो जाता है। हम यहाँ से हैं तो हम यहाँ से वोटिंग कर सकते हैं ना, ऐसा रहना चाहिए एक्चुअली।
जाना क्या, अभी तो भाड़ा गाड़ी इतना हो गया तो जाना अनिवार्य नहीं होता है, पैसा इतना हो गया।
पैसा रहेगा तभी नहीं जाएगा, नहीं तो नहीं जाते हैं।
टाइम वेस्ट तो होता है मैम, क्योंकि कोई अपने इधर बिजी भी रहता है, किसी को टाइम निकाल के जाना पड़ता है, काम छोड़ के जाना पड़ता है। अगर वो सर्विस इधर फैसिलिटी अवेलेबल रहेगा तो अच्छा है।
Despite being the second largest democracy in the 2014 general elections, 280 million Indians did not vote. Surveys suggest that over 50 million citizens work in places other than their home states. Times of India campaign Lost Votes asks the Election Commission to ensure that people on the move can exercise their right to vote no matter where they are. Join Times of India Lost Vote campaign to make your vote mobile. Support the petition at lostvotes.com.
Well, the numbers are really shocking. According to the census of 2011, there are 454 million Indians classified as migrants, citizens who are not living in the city or the state that they were born in. The census has not yet released an age-wise data, but it does tell us that a large number of these people have moved for jobs or for education, and they're all within the voting age. The question is very simple. Can the government figure out a way to allow citizens to vote in the cities of their residence? And should this be so hard? Can we find a way to bring back the lost votes? And it's really important for us to tackle this problem before the upcoming elections, because I do know that there are a lot of urban Indians who feel left out of the entire electoral process and wish there was a solution to this problem. So our phone lines are open. If you have solutions to offer or examples of how you weren't able to vote because you live in a different city, then feel free to call us. Joining me on the show, Vaibhav Agarwal for the BJP. Shankar Raghuraman is the Deputy Executive Editor of the Times of India, who joins us to help us understand the campaign that the Times of India is running, that Mirror Now also supports. Avik Saha, convener of the Jai Kisan Andolan Farmers Wing of Swaraj India. T.S. Krishnamurthy, former Chief Election Commissioner, joins us as well out of Chennai. And Dr. Qureshi, a former Chief Election Commissioner, joins us out of Delhi. I welcome all of you to this conversation. Mr. Krishnamurthy, good evening. I appreciate your time. If you could take us through the problem as you see it, do you think that there might be a solution that we can come up with?
Well, first of all, let me clarify that certain percentage of voters do not vote even if they are in the same place. I do agree there are a number of migrants, Indians, who migrate to another place and they don't get their name registered there, for various reasons. Some of them deliberately keep it in their own place of residence, and some of them just don't choose to eliminate their name from that old place and to register it in the new place. But the fact remains that there are a number of voters who find that they are not able to vote for various reasons. Firstly, we have to consider whether the non-voters are all belonging to this category, because if you look at most of the countries, the percentage of voting is around 50 to 60%. In India, it has generally been above 60 on an average. But there is a grievance among some voters that they are not able to vote because we follow the principle of residence. If you are voted, if you have to register your name in a place where you are resident. Now, students are there in the hostels. They don't register in the place where they live. Obviously, they will have their name in their own native towns or villages. Similarly, there are migrant workers who have probably registered in their native place and they do not choose to come or they are not able to come and vote. There is an answer to this, of course. A postal ballot can be considered for such people. But if the number is large, it's going to be a very mammoth task for the Election Commission to administer it. So certain conditions have to be imposed. Because if a person has been living in another city for more than a year, why should he have his name in his native place? There may be some people who are migrant for a short period. Well, in that cases, we can certainly consider postal ballot. So it's an important issue. Certainly, it needs to be studied. Yes. And certain solutions can be found. Postal ballot is one. And there can be other options which can be considered because, for example, the non-resident Indians, they're all now being allowed to vote from outside India.
Yes.
But the principle of residence is not being followed now. So similarly, there should be some method by which we are able to connect them and enable them to vote.
Yes. In fact, Shankar Raghuraman joins us right now. He's the Deputy Executive Editor of the Times of India. Good evening, Shankar. If you could just take us through the campaign of why Times of India has picked this up and what change you think we should be able to bring in before the next election.
Yeah, well, I think the points that Mr. Krishnamurthy was making are very valid. There are, of course, people who choose not to vote.
Yes.
There's no doubt about that. But I think the number of people who could not vote is enormous. I mean, it's at least running into tens of millions. Let me give you some figures from the 2011 census. According to the 2011 census, well, what they characterize as migrant, which is people who are living where they were not born, is 454 million. Now, the vast majority of these are, about half of them are women who have moved because of marriage. And so many of them may have been living in this new place for a long time. But 21 million people had lived for less than a year in the place in which they were resident. Now, they would therefore not qualify as ordinarily resident there. How would these people vote? You talked about, sir, people who may have, let's take for example the elections that are coming up, likely to be in April, May, which is also harvest time, the Rabi harvest. You will see millions of farm laborers moving from Bihar and UP to Punjab, Haryana, Western UP, etc. for the harvest. Now, do we really expect them to go back to the village to vote if voting happens while they are in Punjab? And if not, are we saying they should be denied a vote?
Yes.
That's the issue I think we are raising, sir, and I'm sure you'll agree with us that, as you rightly said, it's important that we try and make everybody who wants to vote, we should be able to enable them to vote. There will still be people who do not want to vote, and that's fine.
Shankar, do you believe that the proxy is the solution to that?
I agree with you.
What structural solution do you have in mind?
Well, there can be, as Mr. Krishnamurthy said, there can be several solutions. Postal voting is one option. I personally feel that in today's technological era, probably the best solution is, well, like you have online exam centers, where I can go and take a paper that I am appearing for. Somebody else can go and appear for another paper in that same center. It should be possible for us to create voting centers where I can go and vote for my constituency. My iCard, voter iCard, is validated at that center like it would be at any polling booth.
Yes.
And then I should be allowed to vote for the constituency in which I am registered. I don't think it is technologically impossible to achieve this.
But the question really is it technologically impossible to achieve it before the next election? Avik Saha, do you want to comment on first the problem and whether you think the government should focus its energies on finding a solution for the lost votes?
Faye, I'll only focus on the migration of farm workers. This problem is not a new problem. Migration of farm workers is a traditional historic truth. And the right to vote is so intrinsic to this democracy that if 3 months before the election we sit and debate whether it's possible, why it hasn't been done. Of course, Times of India should be congratulated for this campaign. But I'm sorry, with deep respect, Mr. Krishnamurthy, don't you think this is a problem that ought to have been addressed? Don't you think 1/3 of the nation not being able to vote is a failure of democracy? And we have an election commission, a functional election commission that oversees these elections. And these migrant workers who actually need to vote, they need to express their needs the most, don't get to vote. And this is a critical problem. So far as the young are concerned, this country is such a young country. Everything is online. You can transact millions of crores of rupees online, and you can't cast one vote online. The technology is available, as a panelist before me spoke. The intent is not. Perhaps this is the time to ramp up the campaign to ensure that the intent to allow every Indian to vote, every last Indian to vote, whether they want to or not is a question you have to leave to them. But they must get the right to vote, and that right has to be ensured by the Election Commission. And no excuses, please. Not in this age of technology anymore. Online voting, Estonia has succeeded. They've started in 2005. You will argue back and say, oh, it's such a small country. Well, sir, every constituency is one small country. Treat it that way.
Okay, I'm just going to ask Mr. Krishnamurthy to respond to the suggestion.
Moment, yes. But, as I said, the intent must be there.
Yes, I just want Mr. Krishnamurthy to respond to the suggestions before I bring in the representative of the BJP. Mr. Krishnamurthy, do you think these suggestions are possible? Might we be able to do it at some point in our country?
I'm surprised that he has made a statement that Election Commission has not addressed this problem. In fact, every time we have been addressing this issue, and we even considered internet voting for all the citizens. In fact, we had commissioned a study to the IIT Madras. I remember that some study was made and they gave it, but there are practical difficulties. If you expect a migrant farmer labor to do voting online, it may sound very exciting and interesting. Do you think it is possible? Do you think privacy of the vote can be possible? We have to take certain safeguards. I do agree. Every vote is precious. I have no doubt about that. I do agree that we have to find solution to the extent possible. So it is not that the Election Commission has not addressed itself to this issue. We have examined number of options. For example, Gujars in Kashmir, they are not available during certain period of the year because they move on the mountains. So it is a very sustained study has to be made, whether some more improvement can be made. I have no doubt on that. But please don't say that Election Commission has not, for so many years, not addressed itself to this issue.
Vaibhav Agarwal of the BJP, the government of India pushed through what is called a proxy vote to bring in NRI votes through Lok Sabha. It was passed by Lok Sabha in August this year. Is there a solution that the government is working on right now for Indians who live in other cities than the ones that they're registered at?
Okay, so this topic is absolutely not for me to answer because it's not a political issue, but it is within the purview of an independent institution of the country, which is the Election Commission of India. But as a representative of a political party and a citizen also, I would come up with some ideas that I can suggest to the Election Commission. Unfortunately, this government has no interference in it. We can only suggest.
No, one second. Vaibhav Agarwal, stop.
And
nobody's asking you to interfere with the Election Commission. There is something called Parliament, of which your party has a majority.
Yeah.
Now, your party has the ability to move bills, as we've seen you do so well, and in such short time, when you have the political intent for it. A bill has been moved in Lok Sabha that was tabled by the Law Minister, Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad, called it was called the Representation of People Amendment Bill of 2017. The bill had a provision that would help non-resident Indians participate in the electoral process through proxy voting. So that is not interfering with the Election Commission. That is amending the laws, which is the job of the government. My question to you is quite straightforward. Does the government have a plan to amend or to introduce in some way proxy voting for resident Indians as well?
So for non-resident Indians, it is called a proxy vote because they're not here. So it has to be a proxy vote. But when we're resident Indians, we're dealing with an entirely different animal because NRI's population versus the population of the country, active population of the country, are, I mean, I won't even know the correct numbers, but just for this, for the right mathematics, I think it's humongous. So when we look at active polling in terms of transfer of votes, so for example, my vote is in Jaipur. But I haven't gotten it transferred, as Mr. Krishnamurthy rightly said, because of my own personal reasons. And I once for all, for example, I like traveling to Jaipur. So to go to vote, yes, it's just a reason for me to travel to my hometown. But if we look at it, we've already had discussions at some point in time where digitization was the first in the Election Commission. Now you understand that as a citizen of the country, we've made progress on it. As a citizen of the country today, we want voter ID. You can actually go log into the Election Commission's website and apply online. That's backed by a robust online infrastructure, which is further connected to the local Election Commission, as Avik Saha recommended. Of course, Estonia has a different example. In Estonia, Mr. Saha, we can get e-citizenship sitting in India, maybe anywhere by paying $100. So Estonian example cannot be fit into the Indian example, but the feeling is right. So digitization is the first step. And while the rest of the panelists were discussing, I was making some notes. So attach. Let me complete. You'll get your opportunity. So digitization is one thing. We've made easier to get the voter ID. Now, we've also discussed about linking voter ID to PAN. There were issues, political interference there from the other parties. We talked about linking Aadhaar to the voter ID perhaps also. And there were discussions. In fact, I'm so proud of the initiative, and I would like to congratulate the Times Network on running this initiative, coming from the bottom of my heart, not just as a politician, but as a citizen. You know, if I can get a service sitting here doing my vote, exercising my democratic right for my constituency, brilliant. But, a figure of speech here is that the political environment may not allow this. You know, you and I, Faye, we've been on several debates on your channel, on your prime time, where we've discussed political parties taking us back to dark ages in terms of paper ballots. When they win, they stay quiet. So even they had problems of Election Commission issuing EVMs. So you see, there is a larger political debate on it. But just to address, Shankar's perspective on this and Mr. Krishnamurthy's perspective on this, if it was up to me, I would suggest that we can actually go ahead and make a system which is similar to the banking system. The way you issue a check sitting in one place and gets authenticated at another branch, it's like a voting ATM.
Okay, so I do understand that Avik Saha wanted to respond to what you said. Avik Saha, go ahead, and then I'll bring in Mr. Qureshi.
And
I mean, Estonia is just a story where online voting is possible. Getting a citizenship for $100 is a fatuous argument. Why bring it into this debate? And as it was rightly said, this is not a political debate. Look, the point is this.
No, you don't know the conditions. Mr.
No, let him finish speaking. No, Vaibhav Agarwal, you've had your say. Let him finish speaking. Don't interrupt, please.
That's why.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Saha.
Every political party should be interested to see that every citizen votes. It's in their interest. If the political parties don't get together and do it, you have to ask why. Now, as a citizen, as Mr. Agarwal and I are, we have to ask that why don't 1/3 of us, every 1 in 3 of us, not have the right to vote when so much technology is available? You can use digitization for monetary transactions, for food, for everything in this world. Look at the track record, the announcements that this government is making on its digitization progress. This is something that the government should have proactively done. And if the opposition parties are not cooperating, then they should have gone to town about it. Again, yes, Times of India has brought out a timely initiative. And if the Election Commission has been proactive, I wish there was more information on this out in the public domain. We would have known that so much effort is being made.
In fact, to answer that question,
everybody has to answer this question. Why does every third person in India not have the right to vote? And yes, they will travel, they will move across the country. It is for the political establishment, it is for the government, and it is for the Election Commission to catch up with them. It's not the other way around.
All right, fair enough. In fact, Dr. S.Y. Qureshi, former Chief Election Commissioner, joins us right now on the show as well from Delhi. Dr. Qureshi, many thanks for your time. The conversation we're having are about migrant voters, urban or rural, who work in cities not of their home state and not of the state that they're registered in. A lot of them are unable to vote because they're in the wrong city at the time. Is there a possible solution in your mind that India should consider?
Yeah, there are two aspects. One, that the migrants, for instance, if you take Delhi, the migrants are in very large numbers and they live in clusters. They have political interest, they want facility, they want services, they have therefore political power in Delhi, and they're quite okay about it. The other is that they should be allowed to vote in their village, because that is where they eventually want all the facilities. Now, for the rule is that if wherever you are normally resident, which is defined at 6 months or more, you have to register at that place and cancel your registration from the other place. But the choice is in any case there. The other side is that while migrants abroad have been given a facility, they are being treated like VIPs, they can get proxy voting, the postal ballot. I am personally against it, because you cannot have double standards. If you are migrant from Bihar to Delhi, you lose your right to vote in your constituency. But if you are in London, Paris or New York, then you are a VIP. Therefore, this is very discriminatory. We need to look at it. Now we have to ask the migrants whether they are happy to vote at the place of their posting where they are working.
Yes.
My impression is that they are quite happy. They have a lot of clout, a lot of power in those places. So let them register here if they are living here for more than 6 months.
Dr.
Otherwise,
Qureshi,
now postal ballot proxy, somebody mentioned proxy voting. I think that's proxy voting is not a good idea, except for the defense forces, because then the buying and selling of votes will happen, and the proxy voting is basic violation of the secrecy of the ballot. The fact that I am allowing somebody else to vote for me, that is violation of secrecy. And what is the guarantee that my proxy will actually honor the commitment? So it is quite flawed. I think in our over-enthusiasm to enlist NRI voters, we have gone overboard, and it has disturbed that equation, because it is discriminatory. Migrants in the country are treated differently. Migrants abroad are become VVIPs.
In fact, there are two more points I want to put
Faye,
forward. But first, just one moment. We have someone on the
Faye,
phone.
may I just cut in here?
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Faye,
go ahead, Shankar.
Shankar here.
Shankar, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to address a couple of the points that various others have raised. One is, of course, which Mr. Agarwal and to some extent Mr. Krishnamurthy raised, about the sheer size of the magnitude of the problem. And while it is true that that presents a challenge, that is precisely the reason why it's important to do. It is precisely because there are so many millions of people who are being deprived of their franchise that you need to do something about it. That's point one. Point two is Mr. Krishnamurthy talked about, can we expect farm labor to vote online? Which is why, sir, I suggested that you just recreate the polling booths by creating voting centers. He does exactly what he would do in his own polling booth, which is go and press a button in an EVM. Except that it's on a computer. That's the only difference. It's the same EVM reproduced on a screen. That's all you're doing. And as far as
Mr. Krishnamurthy has a response. One second, Shankar,
Shankar,
1 second. Mr. Krishnamurthy wants to respond to you.
Sure.
Mr. Krishnamurthy, go ahead, please.
I'm afraid it is not as simple as it is made out to be.
Why not?
Suppose there are migrant labor. Let us take a city of, say, let us take a city, Ranchi or somewhere, and he wants to vote for his constituency in somewhere in, let us assume in Chhattisgarh or some other place. I have to keep a voting machine for each constituency, which means if it is an assembly election,
only a virtual machine, sir.
Constituencies I have to keep so many machines. No, I will. No, I will.
No, sir, you only have to keep virtual.
It is. You give them the option to do proxy. I mean, sorry, ballot, postal ballot. It is more easy to administer than anything else because you are assuming that the online is so simple as that. If for example, if it is a parliamentary election, I have to give 543 machines in a place voting center. If you think that it can be improved technologically, please suggest. I have no problem on that. Please suggest. Let us.
Dr. Qureshi wants to come in. Well, just one second, gentlemen. Dr. Qureshi, go ahead, please.
You know, two of the panelists have been talking in the support of internet voting. It is child's play as far as technology is concerned for India. I would like to ask these two friends, have they not followed the EVM debate? Even a simple technology EVM, which is nothing but a calculator, the kind of debate that goes on, people ask questions, there is doubt in such a situation for them to accept internet voting. Okay, let them get consensus on that. For us, it is child's play. We will do it. But there is no question of any agreement on that when they are questioning even the basic technology of a standalone electronic voting machine.
Okay, we have a couple of people on the phone line and I want to just bring in as many viewers as we can. Sajid Sheikh on the phone line from Mumbai. Sajid, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. It is Sajid. Thanks, first of all.
I beg your pardon. Go ahead. Then.
Yeah. My thing was like European countries, there are some where they can vote directly to the embassies, okay, for their respective candidates. Why not the similar can be made in India? First of all, like proving the identity cards, they can go to any collector's office and prove themselves instead of online. They can go to the collector's office, show their proof, and then can vote online.
Okay.
Secondly, like the gentleman just now said that the Election Commission, I think whoever it is, he said like person who wants to vote in another state can take a voting card from that state because he's now shifted for some time. Okay, fine. But do you know what is the process that takes for making a new voting card itself?
Yes.
Because I right now I have applied for more than 6 months and I haven't got my voter card.
Yes.
Okay, so myself migrating to another state and then getting a card from there, is it that easy?
Is it that easy? Okay, fair. That's a good question. I'll take that up. Praloy on the phone line from Kolkata. Go ahead.
Hello. See, this I've been hearing this debate. Everybody is trying to give a problem when it is time to digitization. I will give you a very crude solution. I think Election Commission should have a budget so that people from their location can come back to the constituency, give the vote, take that money, maybe the train fare, and then go back.
No, but I don't think that's quite, to be fair, I don't think that's a responsibility of the Election Commission really, because the numbers that you're talking about, that we're talking about of moving people back and forth is impossible. And I just want to point out here that we must as a country acknowledge that our electoral process, especially during a general election, is mind-bogglingly complicated and large. Nowhere in the world does any Election Commission manage to pull off what India does every 5 years. So what you're suggesting might actually be impossible, although I'd never put that past impossible as a word to describe what our Election Commission can do. But I do want to pick up the question asked by the previous caller, and this was a question I was going to ask as well. The process of surrendering your voter ID from a previous location and moving it to your new location is complicated. It's fraught with errors. There are a lot of people I know of personally who surrender one ID and never get the next one and then are locked out of the system. Is there a way in which we can improve that process? So someone who has moved after the 6 months, as Dr. Qureshi put it in air quotes, I remember, can in fact smoothly re-register and vote in their new location. Dr. Qureshi, my question is to you. The process of re-registering or moving my location, can that be made better and more efficient?
Yes, a very good, pertinent question. In fact, we had made it simple. Earlier, the law was that you get your registration cancelled at the old location and apply here. Then we say that when you apply at the new place, just mention your old address and we'll get it cancelled, so that at least cancellation will be taken care of, because registering at two places is a criminal offence. and we didn't want to burden that responsibility on the voter. So apply at the new place, mention your old address, and we will get it corrected ourselves. But it is true that lots of people are facing a big problem all the time. In fact, nobody in the here and in the media debate has talked about an institution we have created of a booth level officer, the BLO. Now, there are 10 lakh BLOs. Booth level means there should be a neighborhood teacher, neighborhood patwari. It is the neighborhood concept is working very well in the villages, but in town there may be problem. In a posh colony, a poor teacher cannot be living. Now, how many of us know our BLO? The key lies in knowing your BLO. If you go to the BLO, he has all the solutions. He or she has all the solutions. And we have been asking political parties to keep to monitor the work of BLO, to appoint their booth level agents so that they can work with them. I think Times of India, if you have taken up this campaign, if you launch this Know Your BLO campaign, I had tried to do before I retired and I could not complete. We wanted to put up the name of your BLO, phone number, address and everything at every post office, every ATM, every bank branch. There are 6 lakhs of them, which means virtually every branch will have the address of 2 BLOs. And then we can have generic advertising for all your electoral roll problems. Go to your BLO, know your BLO, and to know your BLO, go to your bank branch and post office. Yeah. I think that is a campaign which we should all launch together. And Times of India can take the lead. Political parties can publicize it. And they should also appoint their booth level agent. That is the answer. We have taken the service to your doorstep. The school teacher lives in your mohalla. Go to you only have to know her. Go and knock at the door, see whether your name is missing, take the form, give the form, and she will do the rest.
Well, that is a great suggestion. In fact, we have somebody who's called in from Chandigarh with a very, very valid question. Just one second. Harbhajan Singh on the phone line from Chandigarh. Mr. Singh, go ahead.
I'm Lieutenant Harbhajan Singh.
Yes.
I totally support the view that 1/3 of the country should not be denied voting rights.
Yes.
There are difficulties. Ours is a large country, but we must realize we also have vast resources. It is a large country, the resources are comparable.
Yes.
The Election Commission must find ways to technical means to enable the people who cannot vote because they are working outside their constituency. And one set of people is the defense forces.
Yes. And their families, yes.
Employees. So the request is that we must find ways and means. We have the resources and we have the money and we must start this process.
We must start the conversation. Absolutely. Mr. Singh, many thanks for calling us. That's a very valid point. And I've personally had conversations with wives of defense officers who also travel with their husbands on a regular basis. Families of IAS officers who then lose the right to vote. Mr. Krishnamurthy, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I would like to question the statement that 1/3 of our voters are not allowed to vote. That is wrong.
Okay.
It may be 10%, it may be 20%. We have to make a study because certain for example, in a state like Himachal Pradesh or Rajasthan, normally the voting is about 80 to 90%. There are some states where the voting is less, and where we have to find out whether it is because that their vote is not taken into account, or is it that they have not chosen to vote. A study is required to find out how many of them have lost the vote on account of the fact that they are not in a place of their residence. If you can arrive at it, it may be about 15 to 20%. That is my guess, of course. But make a study and find a solution. There can be solutions. Technology can certainly assist us, but you have to take into account the privacy of the vote, the secrecy of the vote. These are all things which cannot be ignored by saying that I'll press a machine, I'll keep a machine, I'll do that. But there are our political parties, I'm sorry to say, they have not shown any initiative in the matter of either voter registration or in matters relating to electoral reforms. Please show me one manifesto of any political party where they have said they will go for electoral reforms. So it is in this background, we cannot easily get a consensus among the political parties.
Yes.
And it is unfair to say that 1/3 of the voting population is losing the right.
Shankar, do you want to come in on that number?
It has to be studied.
Shankar, go ahead.
No, I completely agree with Mr. Krishnamurthy that we have not suggested that 1/3 of our electorate has been denied the right to vote. That's not what we are saying. What we've said is that 1/3 of our electorate did not vote in 2014, and a very large chunk of that, contrary to popular belief, may not be because they did not want to vote, but because they could not vote. That's all we've said. Now, but let me accept, as Mr. Krishnamurthy says, nobody has any exact data on how many chose not to vote and how many could not vote. But let me accept the figure that Mr. Krishnamurthy suggested, about 20% maybe could not vote. 20% of India's electorate, sir, in 2014 would have been about 170 million. And 170 million is equivalent to the votes polled by the single largest party in parliament. The Bharatiya Janata Party polled 170 million votes. So if as many votes as were polled by the largest party could not vote, you can imagine the impact of that on our democracy.
Very quickly, Avik Saha had something to say. Mr. Saha, go ahead.
No, we have the 2011 census from which we have the migration data.
Yes.
That's about 54 crore people.
Yes.
Are you telling me all the voters, let's say half of them are voters, have all gone back to their constituencies to vote? It's not possible. It's simply not possible. I shifted from one locality of Calcutta to the other. It took me so much time to change my voter ID card. The system is not working, and this has nothing to do with political parties. It is the Election Commission's job to ensure that voters are enabled to vote.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with political will. Political parties have objected to ballots, have objected to EVMs. What does it matter? The Election Commission must do its job, must ensure that even if I am mobile, my right to vote must travel with me. It can't remain back in my constituency. We are sending, this government is proud to send a mission to Mars. And here we don't have technology to make the vote move with me.
May I come
Is that
in on
even
this,
acceptable?
Well, that's a fair point.
That's all
Unfortunately, I have run out of time right now, and I'm going to have to leave it here because we'll have to have several conversations. I think what we're saying at this point is that if there are so many of us who feel left out of the process because we happen to live in a different city, let's start a conversation. Let's start finding solutions for that problem. The more people we involve in this conversation, the more people we get to join the campaign, the more attention it will get. We have to find a way, one way or the other, for each and every one of us to be involved in the electoral process. To vote like our country depends on it, because it does. Thanks for watching.